Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Win up to 325 times your entry with their new Pick 8. Sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and your first deposit offer up to $50 in bonus cash on Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamepodcast.com/rhythm, sportsgamepodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It's currently Saturday night, roughly 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on June 15th. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode, but a pretty short one, as we only have two matches to talk about because it is final time in Stuttgart and in Den Bosch. So we're going to preview the matchups between Draper and Berrettini and Korda and de Minaur. So we're going to preview both those. Before we get into that, do want to remind you once again to like, subscribe on YouTube. Also a reminder to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So no matter how you consume the podcast, you can leave some show of support. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't forget to rate and review if you are still watching it or listening to it on Spotify or Apple. Also a reminder, check out the SGPN merch store because we do have great merchandise for the show. We have shirts, we have sweatshirts and mugs. Very comfortable. So don't forget to get yourself something from the show. And a reminder that for the actual network, it's not just this show on the network. We also have a lot of great content, including a great option for you if you are trying to join Circa Millions or Survivor, because we have a promo code for you, which can help save you some money. So Circa announced they're giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes for Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Sign up in Vegas and play from anywhere with footballcontestproxy.com. Promo code SGP to get $50 off. That's footballcontestproxy.com. Promo code SGP. Now, we're going to start off by going through what happened on Saturday in the semifinal recap, where we actually have 4.5 matches to recap because the Humbert and Brouwer match had to finish. So we're going to recap all the matches. Before getting into that, do want to recap our lock and dog picks. Overall, decent episode. Not amazing, not terrible. Did lose the lock, though. We had Berrettini team total over 13 at -130. Thought he'd win. We thought he'd beat Musetti, but we did not think he would bury Musetti, and he did. He ended up winning 6-4, 6-0. Was not expecting a bagel, but Berrettini looks great, and we do have him to win the event. So hopefully Berrettini gets the job done and cashes us a nice outright. However, we did end up cashing the dog, as we had a two-pick parlay. We had Korda money line parlayed with Draper money line at +155. That was really never in doubt. Draper won 6-3, 6-3. Korda won 6-2, 6-4. So each player lost 6 games in their respective matches, and they won comfortably. So a nice parlay winner there with the dog, and hopefully we ended up sweeping the episode for Sunday's matches. Now, time to actually get into the recap of the matches. Once again, 5 matches to recap instead of the usual 4. So Korda beat Griekspoor 6-2, 6-4. Not too shocking because Griekspoor had been struggling throughout the entire event, but ended up finding a way through into the semis anyway. But there will officially be a new champion in Den Bosch since he ended up losing. But Korda really just dominated, simply put. Humbert ended up beating Brouwer in 3 sets. He was down a set, and he was up a break in the second, and then he was able to rally as he won in 3. That was kind of the outcome I expected when we initially previewed that matchup. I thought Brouwer would be competitive. I thought Humbert would win, though. That's exactly what happened, as Humbert did win in 3. And then de Minaur ended up beating Humbert. Humbert originally struggled early in that first set in his basically second match of the day, and he went down 4-0 in the first set. Then he came back, and he won the next 4 games, but eventually de Minaur did wear him down as he won the first set in a breaker and then won the second set 6-3. So kind of the exact outcome that we thought was going to happen on Saturday. We got actually every match right, even including the Humbert-Brouwer match. But we thought that Korda would win. We thought Humbert was going to beat Brouwer, and we thought de Minaur would beat Humbert, and that's what happened. As for Stuttgart, we got those 2 right as well. We had Draper beating Nakashima. He won in straight sets. Nakashima was gifted a pretty easy path after both Zverev and Struff withdrew. And Nakashima, at the end of the day, I think is a decent player. Draper's a lot better, and Draper got the job done in straight sets. And then Berrettini did beat Musetti 6-4, 6-0. That one we thought Berrettini would win, but of course that cost us the lock, as we thought they would go potentially over the match total. That didn't happen, as Musetti ended up getting buried in that matchup. So overall, good day for us in general with the actual match leans and our predictions. Unfortunately, though, it didn't sweep, and hopefully we'll sweep here in this one. I see a question, though, from Spin Serve. Fun question. Who would win in a game of Wheel of Fortune, Berrettini or Draper? That's a tough one. I'm trying to think of who would actually be better at the puzzles. Because a Wheel of Fortune gives you the dumbest puzzles imaginable nowadays. A lot of sayings, but I don't think Draper would get them because he's British. But I don't know if Berrettini would get them because he's Italian. That's a tough one. I'm going to go with Berrettini on this one. Reason, I just think that he's older. I think he's older, so maybe he knows more stuff. I don't know. Game of Texas Hold'em, de Minaur or Korda. I'll go with de Minaur any day of the week. De Minaur, I think, would never really be willing to fold anything, which is kind of dangerous because I do think that de Minaur would go down swinging. I think his bluff range would be more on point than Korda. So there's my thoughts there on the two mini games. Give me Berrettini in Wheel of Fortune and give me de Minaur in Texas Hold'em. Anyway, I think that's going to do it, though, for the actual recap of the Saturday matches. Now it's time to get into the two finals taking place on Sunday. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy because you can play the Pick 8, which is now live for the NBA Finals. There is a Game 5 taking place on Monday. Create entries of up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex your entries, so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and more ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. Best part, you can win into 325 times the original entry. You can now use specials and boosts on all flexed entries. I'll probably end up using one of my Pick 8 choices to be Luka first quarter points in Game 5. That's done pretty well so far in the series. Don't miss out on your chance to win before it is gone. So sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $50 in bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping the Saturday semifinal matchups. Now it's time to get into the final matchups taking place on Sunday. So based on the time of these matches, Den Bosch starts at 6 a.m., and you're looking at Stuttgart starting at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So we're going to go through Den Bosch first. So going through the matchup here, you have de Minaur as a minus 175 favorite. You have Korda at plus 155. For the spread, you have minus 2.5 for de Minaur, plus 2.5 for Korda. Over-under in games is set at 23. For the set wagering, you have the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. For the actual spread set spreads, you have Korda minus 1.5 sets at plus 130, and you have de Minaur minus 1.5 sets at plus 150. For this matchup, I have to mention the head-to-head. They have faced off one time on grass before. It was dated, though. Faced off in Wimbledon in 2021, and you ended up seeing Korda beat him in Wimbledon, as he ended up winning in 4. So Korda does have the head-to-head advantage on grass. De Minaur did beat him in the meeting this year in Rotterdam, as he won 6-4, 6-3. But you're looking at Korda being competitive. They ended up facing off in Paris on hard court in 2022. De Minaur did win in 3, faced off in Wimbledon in 2021, and Korda did win in 4. He actually did win the first 2 sets, though. So keep that in mind, since it is a 2 out of 3 set match. I do think de Minaur is the better player, but I think you can make an argument that Korda is very, very live to actually get the job done on grass. You could argue that Korda is the better grass player than de Minaur, and it wouldn't exactly be the most outlandish statement imaginable. I think that Korda is actually live to win this. I think 175 is a pretty large price. I think Korda is definitely the value option here at plus 155. I don't mind the over. I can see 3 sets, so maybe over 2.5 sets of plus 130 is appealing. But I think Korda, at the end of the day, is going to make the match very competitive. He has not dropped a set yet in the event, so we know Korda has been very comfortable so here in Den Bosch, as he was able to beat Griekspoor in straight sets, Paul in straight sets, Nardi in straight sets, and Schoolcat in straight sets. As for de Minaur, he's also won every match in straight sets, beat Humbert in straight sets, Raonic in straight sets, and Bergs in straight sets. So both guys have been in great form, which makes this match, in my opinion, pretty close, at least based on how I'm looking at these players matching up against each other. So I am going to go with Korda. I think there's value at plus 155. I think de Minaur should be favored based on ranking, but I do think he should be closer, in my opinion, to minus 140, give or take, minus 145. I think 175 is too large, so I am going to go with Korda to get the job done based on the value, but I do like the over as well. Looking at some props, though, I did like the breaks of serve for Korda. It was at 1.5. I do like that prop. I think de Minaur is not exactly a great server, and I do think that Korda can capitalize on that. Korda, the issue is sometimes he struggles to actually convert break points, but he gets them, and I do think 1.5 is pretty low for a break amount for a guy that's been returning serve very well so far in this event. But I think for the sake of this matchup, I'll lean to the over in games, I'll lean to the dog, and I do think a marathon, which Korda might win, is in the cards for this one. Moving on to the other match on the card, you have Draper taking on Berrettini, which should be a pretty intense one full of potential tie breaks because the over-under for this match is set at 25.5 games. For the money line, you have Berrettini at minus 145. You have Draper at plus 125. For the game spread, you have minus 1.5 for Berrettini at minus 108. You have Draper at plus 1.5 at minus 112. For the set wagering, you have over 2.5 sets at around plus 125. Draper in straight sets is a plus 325. Berrettini in straight sets is plus 160. No head-to-head meetings between them. I do want to remind everybody, though, that we already have action on this match because we gave out Berrettini to win the event. So to give you the updated price on that, just in case you wanted to hedge, if you back the outrights from the outright episode, then you do have Berrettini at 14-1. So you can hedge it. And you automatically make basically 7+ units if you want to hedge it because Draper is plus money. The question is, should you? I think this match is going to be very, very close. I think that even though Berrettini's won this title numerous times, and even though Draper is definitely, I'd say, inexperienced in Stuttgart, Draper's been solid, and you're looking at his overall game. I think Draper is a very solid grass player. Now, is Berrettini better on grass? Probably. I mean, only one of these guys did make a Wimbledon final, so I do think that Berrettini has the I'd say the accolade advantage on grass. But I think for the sake of this matchup, I am going to lean to Berrettini, but not by a lot. I can see this being a 3-setter. I don't mind breakers. I don't mind the over. But I think you're looking at what should be a matchup between two guys that have been serving very well so far in the event. Berrettini got broken once in the Safulin match in the first round. Has not been broken since. So his serve has been just an insane weapon. 0 breaks in the last 3 matches. And you are looking at Draper, despite having 30+ aces against Tiafoe and despite not facing a break point in the Nakashima match, he has had some issues getting broken, at least earlier in the event. So I do think Berrettini will generate more chances against the opponent's serve than Draper will against his opponent's serve. So I think I am going to lean to Berrettini. I'm going to trust the experience, the multiple-time champion returning for another title here. Not going to be easy, though. If you wanted to hedge it, I would not mind it, at least for the 14-1, maybe a partial hedge. If you want to go for example, 3 potential units on Draper. So that way you either win basically 5 or 4 and change, or you end up winning basically 11 if Berrettini wins. So maybe if you want to go for a hedge, maybe you can hedge like a quarter of what the winnings would have been for Berrettini, and now you can go about it that way. I would not fully let it ride on this one. I think the match is too close, but I would lean to Berrettini anyway to win what should be a very long and a very fun, in my opinion, 3-set match full of a couple breakers. I believe the breaker in this one is set at like minus 185, minus 195. So you're expecting at least one breaker in this match. I'm not going to disagree. I think it'll be a fun and a match, I'd say, that is not going to feature many breaks. So expect to see a lot of holds, a lot of quality serving. And if you want to go for the aces, the combined aces between them is set at 25.5. I'm not saying to take the over, but the point is you are expecting to see a lot of very powerful first serves and potentially a lot of aces. So keep that in mind. For comparison, by the way, the Korda-de Minaur match has the over-under for total aces at 10.5. So 2.5x on the ace count in this one. Expect to see, I'd say, a minimal number of breaks and what should be a pretty intense match between the two of them. But either way, I'll lean to Berrettini based on experience and based on just a slightly better serving display so far in the event than Draper, as Draper has gotten broken multiple times in the event, and Berrettini only got broken once in the entire 4 matches he's played. So once again, my thoughts for the matchups, I am going to lean to Korda for the value and the over, and I will lean to Berrettini and the over in that one as well. Besides that, though, going to get into the lock and dog picks for the show. But before into any of that, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because if you are betting on NBA player props, then you need to get Rhythm, especially before Monday, because that is when Game 5 of the finals takes place. Rhythm is a prediction and projections app that makes data and analytics in sports betting easier for everybody. It's a predictive model, and it's overall just, I'd say, convenience make it really a solid app for you to get. And the predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help you become betters by helping you make AI-backed betting decisions. Prop predictions are paired with trend graphs. You can see for yourself whether or not the prediction has some value to it, making betting easier for sports bets or even DFS picks. Rhythm, for example, in the previous games was all over Tatum unders when pretty much the entire betting world was on the overs and the unders did get there. So keep that in mind. Rhythm does suggest to you plays that might have some hidden value that other people cannot see. From Superstars bench players, though, Rhythm does find the best player prop lines, all backed by data. So you don't have to constantly scroll through sports books on multiple sites. You can get it all at one place. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgampockets.com with Rhythm, sportsgampockets.com/RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the Sunday matches in Den Bosch and in Stuttgart. Now it is time for the lock and dog picks for the show. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go with a player prop, and I am going to go back to the Den Bosch match between Korda and de Minaur. Give me the over 1.5 breaks for Korda at -135. I think 135 is a pretty generous price when the opponent's serve is really not that great. Despite being a very solid player, and despite having a very solid year, de Minaur is not known for being a great server. And if you're looking at Korda in the head-to-head meetings, he has returned de Minaur's serve quite well. He has broken de Minaur's serve at least 2 times in 2 of the 3 head-to-head meetings. Faced off in Wimbledon, I mentioned it before, it is dated, but it's the only grass meeting they have. It was a 4-setter. Korda did end up getting multiple breaks in the first 2 sets of that matchup. But in those 4 sets, Korda had 19 break points. So I think Korda will be able to return de Minaur's serve with some success. We saw de Minaur get broken multiple times in the Humbert match in the Saturday semifinal. So with that being the case, I think Korda's returning is solid enough to capitalize on what should be a pretty average serve. And if you're looking at de Minaur's second serve, it has not been exactly effective recently. So I do expect de Minaur to struggle to actually win a bunch of free points. I think Korda will be able to generate enough breakpoint chances to eventually force his way over the 1.5. Plus, I do have an insane trend that does suggest how bad de Minaur actually is at serving. Now, you need 2 breaks to cash this, but I'll tell you how often de Minaur has gotten broken at least once in matches. What have I told you? De Minaur has gotten broken at least 1 time in 17 straight matches. Now, that does date back to clay, so I have to at least point that out. Point is, though, de Minaur has gotten broken at least 1 time in every match in this event as well. So he's been not exactly, I'd say, serving bombs by any means, and I do think de Minaur's serve is vulnerable, at least for the sake of this matchup. When you've been broken at least 1 time in 17 straight matches, I can get a guy who's broken your serve 2+ times in 2 of the 3 head-to-head meetings at -135 to do it again. I do like the price on that quite a bit. Korda also has gone over this number in every match in this event, I believe. Let me just quickly check to see if that is true. The only thing that I'm not sure about is the School Kate match, which was the first rounder. Let me quickly check if he did break multiple times in that one. He did break multiple times in each of the last 3 matches. I think he did it against School K2, but I want to quickly check to see if that's true or not. Point is, though, Korda, I think, is a pretty solid returner, and I do think that he is capable of getting the job done in this one. I take it back. He only broke 1 time in the School Kate match. Did have 4 break points, though, so he had some chances. Point is, though, 3 straight matches where Korda has broken multiple times. De Minaur does not have a great serve. I think 1.5 breaks is a solid deal at -135. For my dog, I am going to go to a pretty expected outcome, which is going to be a niche play on a first set line. I mentioned before, I'm expecting a lot of long sets between Berrettini and Draper, and I am going to bet the prop on that. Give me the first set over 10.5 games at +110 as my dog. You're looking at Berrettini, who has not gotten broken a single time in his last 3 matches. So I think Berrettini should be able to get through the first 5 games minimum without getting broken. As for Draper, he's been involved in a bunch of first set marathons. There have been at least 12 first set games in 6 of Draper's last 8 matches. So 6 of Draper's last 8 matches have had the first set either finish 7-5 or 7-6. So Draper is used to a lot of very long and drawn out first sets. Was actually not the case on Saturday. So it had been a 5 of 7. It had been a 6 of 7. And then yesterday's match against Nakashima happened, or I should say Saturday's match happened against Nakashima. Point is, though, Draper does seem to find himself in a lot of long sets, and it does seem like it takes him a while to actually, I'd say, combat the opponent's first serve. That's kind of what I've noticed. Bit of a slow, I don't want to say learner, but it seems like he is willing to, I'd say, trade holds with his opponents relatively early in matches. But when the trend is that solid, 12 plus games in 6 of the last 8, and Berrettini has not gone broken in 3 straight matches, I think the recipe is there for a pretty long set, either a 7-5 or a 7-6. So as a result, I am going to go with the over in the first set at plus 110. So once again, my picks for the final in Den Bosch and the final in Stuttgart. For the Luck and Dog segment on Sunday, I'm going to go with Korda, over 1.5 breaks and minus 135 as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go with Berrettini and Draper first set over 10.5 games at plus 110 as my dog. That's going to wrap it up. A reminder, though, that we have more tournaments coming up on grass. In fact, we have 2 separate 500s coming up for next week. We have Halle, and we end up having London as well. So stay tuned for those 2. We're going to preview both 500s over the next day or so. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. Find me on the WNBA show as well. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.